Hey everybody, Mike Harrelson here with Article 2 Industries. Again, I want to introduce you to a very special member of the Article 2 team today. You're going to see a lot of them. We're going to test guns, we're going to run guns, we're going to do all kinds of things together in the near future that you're going to see. This is Matt Schmidt. Matt's 20 plus years, State Highway Patrol Agency. Had long stints as a canine officer for his agency. Did a long stint as an interagency narcotics task force officer. When I met Matt 14 years ago, his reputation as a human dope dog preceded him. Currently, he's a weapons officer and range master with his agency. Matt, welcome.
Thank you. Glad to be here.
Glad to have you. We're going to ask Matt a few questions today and hopefully give you a perspective from a law enforcement officer that maybe you don't get so much. So Matt, regarding defensive guns, a lot of questions are out there and some of them maybe not answered quite so correctly. Specifically with a handgun, what in your opinion makes a good defensive handgun?
Simplicity, consistency, and reliability.
Excellent. So in your opinion, less is more sometimes.
Absolutely.
Okay. Something in the nature of a Glock, revolver. What are your thoughts?
Revolvers are great, absolutely, but the issue with the revolver is sheer capacity. So yeah, something like a Glock is a great example of simple, high capacity, reliable, consistent trigger pull, all those things.
Great points. What's more important with a defensive gun, caliber or capacity?
In my opinion, capacity.
Absolutely. So you're not so concerned with, one shot 45, why 45? Because they don't make a 46?
And back in the day, I think there was probably an argument for that, and there still is, if you want to get real geeky into it, an argument for that. But bullet manufacturing has come so far now that they do a lot with the smaller calibers that are going to do a much better job of stopping that threat.
Absolutely. Very good. So regarding your defensive pistol, for your EDC, your everyday carry pistol, even more so than maybe your nightstand gun, if you will, should you have a weapons mounted light on your EDC gun?
Well, there's never anything wrong with having a light, especially when you get into low light conditions. You have to be able to identify your target. And so, should you have one or some sort of illumination? Yeah, whether you carry it on your pistol or on your person is a different question.
Fantastic. Story a couple days ago, we saw a fella shot his 16-year-old daughter who lived, thankfully, who was trying to sneak back in the house in the early morning hours and clearly didn't have the light to identify her. So lasers are getting very popular. You have lasers in grips now. You have all kinds of lasers. Should you have a laser on that EDC gun?
I believe lasers have their places too. I don't have them on any of my pistols. I would like to try it and just to see what type of advantages a person might have or might not. But I think that's definitely a personal preference. But as with any pistol, as well as flashlight, you will have to practice. You have to get comfortable with it.
When you put a laser on your gun, do you see your sights anymore, or are you too fixated on that red dot floating around?
From what I hear, most people get fixated on that red dot. And I think it would be advantageous for someone to start shooting a pistol without a laser to sort of get that foundation, and then if you wanted to try the laser, go with that and see if it actually, if you feel it improves your chances of surviving a fight.
So with enough practice and training, you can actually see your sights and that red dot out there, or green dot?
Exactly.
Okay, so practice and training until it becomes second nature?
Yes.
As with everything else?
As with everything else.
Absolutely. Women are an exciting segment right now of the population and the growth of the whole entire Second Amendment movement and gun ownership in particular. What kind of guns should women be looking at for personal defense?
The women I know who shoot well with a pistol, the first thing they all say is, "This feels comfortable to me." And so you're going to have to find something that immediately feels good in your hand. If it doesn't fit, it's never going to fit. You may be able to do some sort of grip changes like what the Glock has, but find something comfortable. To me, that's first and foremost.
So how do you suppose that we can help women who may be sitting on the fence to gain more confidence to maybe buy a gun, maybe come over to the Second Amendment side and personal defense community side?
Well, I think most women are intimidated by guns in general because it seems like a man's world, and they're loud and they have the ability to kill people. They can be dangerous if not handled properly, and so they need to find someone that they trust, someone who they can listen to, someone who can communicate with them on a very relaxed, easy level, and explain to them that this is not rocket science. This isn't something that you need to be intimidated by. This is something you can have fun with, as well as protect yourself, your children, your family.
Absolutely. So as a longtime firearms instructor and range master, you're responsible for training officers who are going out there on the road, risking their lives every single day. And what is the most important thing with those officers that you can impart on them before they go out on their next shift?
Every time we have a range day, I want those officers to leave feeling confident, feeling like whatever situation they run into, after they leave that range, they know they can handle it. And it doesn't matter how the range session may have been that day, I try to always end on a positive note so that they walk out head held high, feeling good and confident about themselves.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. So, two completely different worlds when it comes to responding to a situation where you have to, as a law enforcement officer, you run into trouble. As a citizen, we try to move away from trouble. How does your training with law enforcement convey, and how does your training philosophy convey to the general public when you're teaching somebody who's not a cop?
Well, obviously we're not going to teach them to run in, but we have, I know there are situations that you run into, my brother, where we wish people behaved a certain way because we are coming. We are en route to that situation. And so we prefer more of a defensive, stay put, protect yourself, protect your family. Don't go looking for the problem, that's our job. And let us deal with that.
Absolutely. Very good. Shifting gears a little bit, there seems to be a growing sentiment in this country that law enforcement has become too militarized. Speak to that for me.
Well, they probably have become a little more militaristic, especially in some of the uniforms, the way they look, and some of the approaches that law enforcement takes to situations. But we have, we're not the 1950s police force who was able to approach a situation a little more laid back, because nowadays we have better trained criminals. We have a lot more information on the internet. We have people coming over from other countries, terrorist factions, that we are the first line of defense. Not everybody we run into is going to be your wife driving down the freeway who happens to be going too fast. And so you have to step up your game. You have to react and go to the same level of what you're dealing with. Otherwise, it's going to be a train wreck.
Absolutely. And even maybe the criminals aren't all more sophisticated, but recently we've had riots in Ferguson, Missouri that has captured the nation's attention, and we probably haven't seen this kind of rioting maybe since the 1992 Rodney King type of riots. Even when people are out there acting like animals, like savages, people are throwing firebombs, Molotov cocktails at these officers. They're hurling baseball-sized rocks at these officers. Is there a point where maybe you just need some of that equipment that looks more militarized than traditionally that we're used to be able to send an officer out to the road and get home safely to his family after the shift's done?
Absolutely. not only from an officer standpoint, but it should also be from their administration, from their department, and the community, that the officer should be able to go home safely no matter what the situation. They didn't hire us to go out as fodder for people who are, behaving this way. We're there to stop it. And if that's what it takes to stop it, then you have to go to that level. We're not the ones making that choice. They are. And so we are responding to the level that they bring it.
Absolutely. One more question. In your experience as a cop for multiple decades now, as we see in some instances, often instances, as more gun control is implemented, restrictions get tighter, especially in some of the not so free states. Tell me, in your experience in 20 years as a cop on the road, how much of a reduction in crime have you seen from all this gun control being implemented?
Well, it's not only what I see. Obviously, I see no reduction in criminal behavior or crime. And it's also documented in a lot of different studies. But the fact is, we are criminalizing good citizens by creating laws that limit what we can do to defend ourselves. And I say we, and me as a citizen, not just as a law enforcement officer. Me and my family and my friends are being limited, and it's creating a situation where we can no longer defend ourselves, and we're becoming the criminal.
Outstanding. So the honest, law-abiding citizens are the ones being punished.
Absolutely.
And what you're trying to tell me is that no matter how many laws that we enact here, those criminals still aren't going to follow them? No. What a revelation. Who'd have thought that? Matt, thanks a bunch. We really appreciate you being here. I want you to stay tuned, watch our channel. We're going to bring a lot of content to you. Please like, favorite, subscribe, and we want to hear your feedback. We want to answer questions that you have. Thanks again.